A few months ago, I got to attend Command Fest DC, where I met many interesting and cool Magic the Gathering players, including a man by the name of Andrew Weber, who happens to run the largest MTG Commander Facebook page. I'd been aware of this page for a while, as it is an awesome resource for Commander discussion, help, tips, deck building advice, and all-around positive community. And if you're not already a member, then I'll link it in this video's description, and I encourage you to check it out. So I asked Andrew, out of all of the Commander decks that he's seen, that he's played against and with, that he's built, which one would he say is one of the most stylistic, interesting, different, all-around cool decks? And he said to me, it's actually a mono-white Commander deck. Mono white? Mono white? I needed to see this list immediately to check it out. I asked Andrew, can mono white Commander really deliver all of that? And he said, oh, no. It's not delivery, it's Djeru.
For fresh baked pizza at home, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
If you get that joke, you're over 30. Congratulations. With enemies all around and a sandstorm whipping up, it might seem like all hope is lost. If you're lucky though, a fabled planeswalker might just grace the battlefield in your hour of need. Get ready to hold the line with this Djeru with Eyes Open Commander deck tech. A mono-white commander, I guess we're looking for a planeswalker more than a planeswalker. Do you get it? Planeswalker? Planes were mono-white? Yeah, you get it. For 3 and 2 white mana, Djeru is a 4/3 human warrior with vigilance. Djeru occupies some fairly unique design space with his abilities, which favor building up a planeswalker-led battalion of the faithful to secure victory. When Djeru comes into play, you can search your library for a planeswalker card and put it into your hand. In addition to digging out your favorite Magic Super Friends, Djeru confers a damage reduction bonus to these loyal heroes. If a source would deal damage to a planeswalker you control, prevent 1 of that damage. Whether that's through combat damage or a good old-fashioned lightning bolt, you'll be grateful for the chance to keep your planeswalkers in play a little longer. Just like Amonkhet, where Djeru hails from, the battlefields we play Commander on can be harsh, unforgiving, and relentlessly taxing. The strategy for this deck is to essentially weather the storm. We need to fortify our defenses, either by preserving our life total, or by weaving synergy between our field of planeswalkers and enchantments. If we can slow the game down to our pace, we should be on the road to victory. The main strategy of the deck is to find and resolve planeswalkers. To do this, we will use Djeru's Enter the Battlefield effect, Arena Rector, and Ignite the Beacon. Our strategy is then supplemented by an Enchantress-style Pillow Fort, and some number of political and tactical spells to navigate the game. Given we are a planeswalker-focused deck, we're running the Chain Veil, an artifact that lets us activate loyalty abilities twice a turn. This can get us into ultimate range a lot quicker, especially when combined with Karn's Bastion, which proliferates when activated. In order to survive to the late game and secure victory, we must first take steps to prepare. While White's access to ramp can be limited, it does have a number of playable options that fit into our unique kind of deck. If any color in Magic deserves to run Sol Ring, it's White, and so we're definitely playing this Commander staple. 2019 brought us one of the most powerful ramp options in White in Smothering Tithe. I'm sure I don't have to tell you how great this card can be, and in a deck with a fondness for enchantments, it provides a great way to back up some treasure for a crucial turn. Similarly, Gemstone Array can let us use up every last bit of mana when we have some left over by converting it into a mana source for later use. Gilded Lotus can come down and give us an immediate boost in mana production, while Extra Planar Lens lets us take advantage of running snow-covered plains. As you may know from other mono-colored deck techs, the lens allows our basic snow plains to tap for double the mana, which is an incredible boost. And thanks to their recent reprinting in Modern Horizons, now's a good time to get a hold of some snowlands if you don't own any. Vessel of the Endless Rest rounds out our artifact-based ramp, allowing us to put a defeated planeswalker back to the bottom of our library for Djeru to call back to battle. We can potentially do this same action every turn by having Mistveil Plains in our mana base. The ability to reuse Planeswalkers is part of what makes our deck so resilient. As well as ramping with non-land permanents, it's also a good idea to dig out the lands from our deck. So we're running one of the more efficient cards in white, Land Tax. This card allows us to always hit our land drops, whilst thinning our deck to increase the likelihood we draw into the spells we want to be casting instead of drawing into more land. If you'd like, you can take this to the extreme with Endless Horizons, which allows us to dig out as many basic planes from our deck as we'd like. Thematic Compass fills a number of roles for us, giving us both the ability to grab lands out of the deck, but also that it eventually flips into Spires of Orazca. This extra copy of Maze of Ith, another land we're running, allows us to push back the assault on our Planeswalkers by removing opposing creatures from combat. In a pinch, it can also tap for mana if we need to. With almost 20 enchantments plus enchantment tokens, Serra's Sanctum is a home run for us, allowing us to build up to multiple spells per turn territory in short order. Combined with the devotion we'll achieve by playing so many white permanents, this will also enable Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. Of course, generating a lot of mana is no good without spells to cast. With not nearly as many draw options as other colors, we'll have to make do with what we can. For straight up card draw, we have Endless Atlas, which allows us to spend 2 mana on an extra card every turn. Arch of Orazca fits into our mana base and lets us do the same for effectively 6 mana. It's expensive, but we'll take it. Karn, Scion of Urza, gives us card draw in the form of a choice for an opponent. If we make friends with somebody that has a problem, it's very likely we can convince them to put the board wipe we both need into our hand. Enlightened Tutor is probably one of our best cards. It can fetch all manner of utility pieces and can help dig for card draw or ramp effects should we need them. Similarly, Idyllic Tutor lets us assess the board and then go and grab whatever is most relevant. Sometimes we'll want to set up to grab Planeswalkers out of our deck. Aside from Djeru himself, we can look to Ignite the Beacon. Grabbing 2 walkers at once can sometimes be crucial. We could, for instance, grab Gideon of the Trials to make an emblem to stop us losing the game while we control a Gideon Planeswalker, and grab another Gideon out of our deck to back this up. Arena Rector is also very strong. When she dies, we can search our deck and put a Planeswalker into play. Not into our hand, but directly into play. In order to take a win, we'll have to dictate the pace of play by slowing things down. Both Ghostly Prison and Sphere of Safety tax our opponents heavily for attacking us. Aura of Silence provides a similar taxing effect on early game mana rocks and other engine cards, with the bonus onboard trick of removal when we need it. Meekstone ensures creatures with any real attacking power don't untap during their controller's untap steps, which is exactly where we need to be. Djeru has Vigilance, and our tokens are mostly small enough to slip under the radar when they aren't on blocking duty. Humility can really simplify boards, ensuring opposing creatures will always trade off with our tokens, no matter how big they used to be. Humility also works well to disrupt combo decks, or decks trying to achieve synergy such as tribal builds. If everything is a vanilla 1/1, there's not much to be done. Authority of the Consoles, Blind Obedience, and Kismet can all help you slow down your opponents out of the gates, providing some annoying hurdles for them to get over. With any luck, they will spend premium removal on these speed bumps, ensuring your more important spells can stick later on. The incidental life gain is nice too, as one of our win conditions, Test of Endurance, requires it. Our Planeswalkers can also help us hold down the fort, with the ultimate abilities of Elspeth, Knight Errant, and Tajani Steadfast proving to be extremely potent and nigh unbeatable, given we have the cards to support them. Remember, if a Johnny's emblem is in play, having either our commander or Orbs of Warding means we'll take no further damage at all. Sometimes slowing down our opponents isn't enough, and you'll need to hit the reset button. There's a need for a very diverse range of board wipes in a deck like this. If possible, we want some upside on our spells to get maximum value. Austere Command is one of the better spells with the flexibility to approach most situations in the way we want. Usually, creatures and artifacts will be the targets here. Cleansing Nova is essentially a second copy of this spell, and as such, we're definitely running it too. Consulate Crackdown gives us a nice way to ignore artifacts for a while too, which is a boon to an Enchantress-style build that doesn't want to reset the board of both artifacts and enchantments unless it absolutely has to. Fumigate allows us to gain a large chunk of life should the board require us to fire it off, while both Hallowed Burial and Terminus can get around indestructible boards that seek to weather our storm, with the latter's miracle cost being a very efficient use of mana should we pull it off. That's not all for board wipes. We run Slaughter the Strong, whose sacrifice wording can also get around indestructible, all while allowing us to keep Djeru in play. Settle the Wreckage is an instant speed option that we can deploy as a last resort. If things get rough, we can rely on All-Stars, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, and All is Dust to really wipe the field for good. Taking advantage of big, colorless spells is something Mono White loves to do, so we're also playing Ugin the Ineffable. Ugin offers both card draw, tokens, and a Vindicate style effect, and also Karn Liberated for when there's a real problem permanent in play. Grasp of Fate and the Wanderer round out our single target removal. Grasp hits multiple targets, which makes it pretty efficient, and the Wanderer can help prevent damage-based wraths or burn spells from heating up our planeswalkers and tokens too. This is it. We've prepared to face our trials, and in doing so, set up the board to enable us to win. So how do we seize victory? The most common way to dawn with Djeru is to resolve a team of planeswalkers, supplemented by a board of enchantments that make it hard for your opponents to do anything about them. Designed to be powerful and game-altering cards, your opponents will be too distracted dealing with these rather than with you. Approach of the Second Sun gives us a way to win the game all on its own. All we have to do is resolve it twice and we'll take the win. Thinning the deck with land tax and Endless Horizons goes a long way to finding this spell in the first place, and giving us the mana to cast it. We also run a copy of Bosiju, who shelters all. This land, more than just stopping our game-winning spell from being countered, ensures we also get to resolve the board wipes we need to before we get to this point. Our other way to win without overextending our position is Test of Endurance, which is essentially a harder to remove Felidar's Sovereign. Test of Endurance allows us to win the game at the beginning of our upkeep provided we've hit the threshold of having 50 or more life. Given we start on 40 life to begin with, this is surprisingly easy to achieve. Dropping a card like Authority of the Consuls on turn 1 always feels good, but with this win condition in the deck, it is a very potent play indeed. Getting to the late game to take the win is still the more likely game plan, though. Cards like Orbs of Warding, Force Field, and Righteous Aura can help to stem the bleeding by reducing incoming damage to more manageable amounts. Story Circle is perhaps the card with the highest variance, but in the right game, you might be able to prevent damage from all three of your opponents, provided they share a color between them. Ashes of the Abhorrent is a great way to gain some extra life, while also helping us to not be cold to graveyard-based decks. It'll stop flashback strategies or the abilities on creatures like Chainer, Nightmare Adept from functioning at all. Peacekeeper, meanwhile, is our ultimate diplomat. As long as we pay the upkeep cost of 1 and a white, creatures can't attack at all. Between flipping Thematic Compass into Spires of Orazca and having Core Haven and Maze of Ith, we can usually remove the biggest and most threatening creatures from combat before even worrying about reducing damage. And as I said earlier, we can use abilities like this to make allies. There's nothing stopping us from saving other players from harm too. Gideon of the Trials is another way to make such deals. His uptick ability can prevent damage from a permanent, which not only helps you, but can help another player who might be the target if we've dug in too deep to be attacked. And finally, Mystic Barrier forces the table to only attack in one direction. Find out just who is the bigger threat in the seats next to you, before redirecting their efforts away from you entirely. Eventually, every siege breaks. Elspeth, Sun's Champion, is often our go-to when we need to call for aid. Her +1 will fill our board fast, and her -3 is a board wipe that will protect most of the few creatures we have. If we can get her into ultimate territory, she grants a valuable buff to our army, giving them +2/+2 and flying permanently. There are few decks that can deal with a steady stream of flying tokens. For this reason, we are running Luminarch Ascension. Given all of the ways in which we already want to preserve our life total, it's not difficult to get 4 quest counters on this cheap 2-mana enchantment. If this goes unchallenged, it can quickly end a game. Heliod, God of the Sun, lets us make the most out of any extra mana we have, creating 2/1 enchantment creature tokens that fuel the count for both Sphere of Safety and Sarah's Sanctum. Heliod himself is also a great blocker and one that will likely be online with ease in our deck. Keldoran Outpost can make chump blockers at instant speed, and like Heliod is a good mana sink when we have nothing else going on. The deck also has a number of other powerful plays that are very satisfying to pull off. We'll often have Djeru in play, and often he'll be relatively free to attack given our board control and his vigilance. With that in mind, you just might be able to commander damage somebody out of the game. With a buff from Elspeth, Knight Errant, which can jump him with the huge +3/+3 in flying, you'll effectively have a player on a 3-turn clock. Going in on this strategy might cause your commander to attract some heat. If Djeru starts to eat removal regularly, you can use Command Beacon to put him into your hand from the command zone. This is a great way to get that last bit of damage through, or to find a Planeswalker late game that you've put back into the library with Mistveil Plains or Vessel of the Endless Rest. In a similar vein, we can use Hall of Heliod's Generosity to put back our game-winning enchantments like Test of Endurance and Luminarch Ascension. Ajani, Strength of the Pride, is a signpost card for what our deck wants to do. His uptick gives us 1 life for each walker and creature we control, whilst his downtick can make Ajani's Pridemate tokens. These tokens will grow quickly and gladly join the army as we charge out to wrap things up. His ultimate ability, however, has the potential to break the game wide open. Pave the way to victory with this powerful kitty ally. Comeuppance is another way to protect your board en masse, with the added upside of sending the damage back at the creatures dealing it. It's both a potential board wipe and a fog in one, and it's one of the best tools in our box. This even works with cards like Aetherflux Reservoir. You'd never have imagined redirecting a super laser was possible, but it certainly is. Teferi's Protection is an all-star of a card. Beyond just the obvious ways to use it, it synergizes well with all of our most devastating plays. And when all hope feels lost, or let's be honest, when your opponents are tapped out and can't interfere, you can attempt to pull off the ultimate modes on Elspeth Tirel and Gideon Champion of Justice. With either Elspeth's Destroy All Permanents except for tokens and lands, or Gideon's Exile all other permanents on the stack, if you hold priority, you can cast Teferi's Protection to ensure you avoid the incoming obliteration. At the end of the day, Djeru with Eyes Open is a powerful toolbox deck that aims to set up impossible choices for your opponents under the guise of kinship through struggles. Use your tools to aid your fellow players and bargain into positions in which you will ultimately benefit to a greater extent. Set up an impenetrable position to weather the storm before striking out to meet the dawn. The second sun approaches.